Good afternoon or good evening, fellas. How we doing?
Hey Andrew, how are you?
What's up, buddy?
Just tired, man. Just tired. My life's tired. So I've after a long week, I got 4 days off in a row. I got Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, and then I'll be off Monday. Get maybe recoup from a big victory over this big Masters weekend. How are y'all doing? First of all, Spencer, how are you doing? And how's the weather where you're at?
Weather's good. Vegas, the thing is with Vegas, and I've told this to people before, and I guess the thing about it is it's unfair to say because it gets into 0 degree weather in some places, but Vegas is not always perfect weather. You get really hot summers, and then during the winters, it can get a little bit cold and gets very windy in this state. But weather's good right now. There's no complaints on that end. And as far as the golf goes, it's been a good tournament. Scottie Scheffler's obviously running away with it right now, but still 2 days to go. I think anything can happen. I don't think this is over. And when I ran the numbers on my model doesn't believe it's quite over yet either.
Good to hear. I was actually first thought I had after when he's starting to run away with it, I started cooking dinner. I had the TV loud and listening, and I like to when I cook dinner over here, I like to go all in. So I was doing dicing up sweet potatoes and onions and green peppers and we had New York strips and shrimp, grilled shrimp, and because it's Masters Week, right? We're going all out for Masters Week. And sitting here watching all this, and man, just like birdie after birdie after birdie, I'm like, goodness gracious, this is pretty wild here. What did he run off like 3 or 4 in a row right there on the back nine, and
Yeah.
uh, built a pretty good lead. But what's weird about the Masters is, or any golf tournament in particular, you get the big lead. The big lead is a little different than a lead. There's a little unconscious added pressure. I'm not sure if he's gonna fall into those things or whatever, but yeah, I don't know. For everybody watching, I'm sure you know this guy. This guy's at TL Sports on Twitter. Spencer Aguiar. Him and Joe came into Rotoballer the exact same time. They've built this. They built the Rotoballer golf content from the ground up and turned into one of the best products out there when it comes to DFS PGA stuff. So first of all, hats off to you guys, and I'm happy to be friends with both of you and work alongside of you all week in, week out.
Really appreciate the kind words there, Andrew. And the funny thing about it is when we started this, it was in 2008 2018 for the Masters. So it's kind of wild to be sitting here with Joe and you and, talking about the Masters. I don't think doing a podcast at the time was something that Joe had envisioned, and it was not something that I had envisioned doing. So it's kind of come full circle, and, I'm happy to be able to do it with you guys.
Yeah, and I did not even mention what Fantasy Sports Golf Writer of the Year here, Spencer Aguiar, golf content award winner, puts out what you put out 3 premium articles a week plus all the extra stuff with the showdowns and the one and done and the expert roundtable, right? What do those articles detail?
Yeah, so I do about 7 or 8 articles for Rotoballer Week. So you'll get all the showdown content. That's where you can find my in-tournament model. I will give you it from an outright perspective. I'll run it. I will give it from a head-to-head perspective. I'll try to give my head-to-head picks in each article for this tournament right now. I'm 3-1. This year, I've been on fire on those plays. I believe I'm over 70% right now through 30, 40 plays on it. So those have been going really well. My Vegas report will give you all the picks that I have for the week. I do a DraftKings article where I run down the DraftKings board on Monday. It's a first look perspective on it, where I run all my numbers against it to try to find leverage and all those advantages. The one and done that you mentioned, I do the round table, and I don't think, am I missing anything, Joe? I feel like that's everything that I do.
I think you got it all, buddy. I think
Yeah.
you got it all.
Yeah, sorry, my light here. I've tripped over this cord 3 times so far, about knocked myself out. Yeah. So yeah, if you're interested in supporting Spencer at all and you want to sign up for the PJ Premium, you're going to love to see that Vegas report. I know from just from a telling perspective. So if you want to look into that, use this promo code TOFF when signing up for the PJ Premium, save you about 10% on that deal. Okay, so let's talk about today, Friday. We've had an outline for every show. I haven't got one made up for this one, so we're going to shoot from the hip from this one. How's your tournament going so far, Spencer? From your personal perspective, and we can talk about where we'll round about after everybody kind of throws out that we'll come back to where we think it's going. So Spencer, go first. How's your tournament going so far in your opinion?
From a pre-tournament perspective, it's going all right. The pre-tournament head-to-heads that I had, those are definitely the weak point. As I said, I'm 3-1 on an in-tournament perspective. Went 2-1 today. On the first day, I hit Dustin over Morikawa. That's going to save the week, I think, a little bit there. The matchup bets, I'm going to probably have a couple. If you look at my Vegas report article or my in-tournament article that I do, you can find it there. But from a DraftKings perspective, it went pretty well for me from the plays that I had. I like Sam Burns. He missed the cut. I was pretty much a full fade on Koepka. I like Xander a little bit, but a lot of my exposure there wanted to go towards Cantlay. So, I mean, it's a very minor miss, but like other than Xander and Burns, that's pretty much the only players that like I wildly miss from the top. I like Eric Van Rooyen a little bit, but I mean, that's a $6,000 play that had no ownership to him. I like Cameron Young a little, but most of those really big guys that missed the cut, like Casey, who didn't play, or Koepka or Spieth, I didn't have any exposure to them. So that's a really good thing on that front. But unfortunately, on the outright perspective, I don't know if I'm going to end up getting to the winner's circle this week. I really liked Rory. We can talk about Rory in a little bit. It's just the putter didn't come around. I really liked Hatton. Same exact thing has happened with him. He has the biggest differential in the tournament right now that I can find. And, sometimes you just need to get a hot putter that doesn't come to win these tournaments.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, I was exposed a little bit with Woodland, and after looking at the numbers, I didn't listen to what the numbers told me about that guy. He might've had flashes at this tournament, but he hasn't actually finished well. For me, I'm a little disappointed in the 6K range, not diversifying more from the standpoint of, I'm not saying that I would have ever picked Charles Schwartzel, and who knows where Charles Schwartzel is going to finish at the end of this tournament, but I have zero exposure to him. He's got 3 good finishes here. I think three top 10s, obviously the win way back in the day, 2012, maybe 16. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But he's had a couple of finishes here, especially in with the conditions that favored him, right? I mean, high winds, low scores, lower, higher scores, I guess. And that's going to favor the guy that doesn't necessarily putt it as well. And it fits the MO with like a, what the story we try to tell ourselves was Zalatoris, good lag putting, good ball striking goes a long way here. And that's his game. And so that may be why he's finished there strong here a few times, over the years. So I'm a little disappointed I don't have any exposure to him. I'm very proud that I have a ton of exposure to DJ and it's still Patrick. Patrick's still there. I mean, I know he's a couple over par, but he's still there. The one guy I really screwed up on, I was big on Woodland and big on Spieth, honestly. And I talked myself into Spieth. It's hard not to if you look at past history. I know where Joe's going with this conversation. One man and one man only. So go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, Brooks Koepka was a one-man wrecking crew from my week. It's so tough, man. It's like I was telling you guys before we started recording. I invest so heavily in these core players, and unfortunately, all my Scottie Scheffler exposure, which I have a lot of, was paired with Brooks. So that kind of kills it. You got the tournament leader, but you also got a guy that you're heavily invested in missing the cut. And it's just very frustrating. I rarely miss on these higher dollar core plays. Sometimes I will try to focus in on a mid range or lower tier guy and make them a core piece. And understandably, they will miss occasionally, but rarely do I miss as badly as I did on Brooks this week. So it's still just kind of one of those things. It's tough to shake off. 9 holes into this thing yesterday, I'm absolutely loving where we are with Brooks. 200 through 9. The golf course is playing tough. It's a scenario that if I could pick a scenario to have a ton of exposure to Brooks, it would be the way this course is playing this week, which kind of makes it that much more frustrating. But yeah, just almost a week killer for me with how Brooks Koepka played today. So that's where I am halfway through.
Also, Spencer, I want to talk to you one more thing about this. I found myself exposed quite a bit on the younger guys with their first time here. I'll run through some names. Obviously Burns, heavily exposed to Burns, heavily exposed to Hoagie, heavily exposed to Young, Straka. I just found myself like drawn to these guys, probably because of the form over the last 6 months to a year. How do we in the future here at Augusta National put it? Do we need to follow your seven deadly sins article for this and just on a note to be safe, maybe not be so heavily exposed? Luckily I was really high on JJ Spawn. I thought it would continue over, but I talked myself out of it because of that. But I didn't talk myself out of it on the the Young and Burns. Those two hurt pretty good. Maybe Young more than ever because he was down that range where I need him to pull through. I'm happy with obviously JJ and Hoagie and Straka. I mean, I think Straka, I've watched a lot of his shots, and actually his strokes gained putting has surprised me a little bit. But if he can square up that driver here going forward, he can shoot a low number on this golf course. I've got him T20 at 9-1. I'm pretty happy about that right now.
Yeah, I think one of the problems is in Young and Burns would be the two that, no pun intended, burn me, I guess, also on it. But it's a tough situation. Like when I run my model, I attach a weight to the course history, and the players that don't have course history, I will go through and give them a number on it. So like for Sam Burns, for example, I put him as like one of the 40th best guys at this course. Now we don't know that to be true, and you do need course experience to find success here. It's just a tough situation to decide what you want to do in that spot, because I think every single one of those players that you named ended up being underpriced. And that's part of the problem, is that you do get these quote unquote values that aren't used to playing the course. And you run into these problems where on the surface, if you're running a model, Cameron Young is going to look really good, or Sam Burns is going to look really good. And I think Sam Burns was a fine play. I'm not really sure exactly what happened to him. Like if I go through the stats, it's the around the green game, I guess, more than anything that got him. And that would make sense. These are very fast greens, and the undulation to the property ends up causing problems. He looked good off the tee. You would expect that with the length that he has, but it's kind of just, you have to pick and choose your spots, and you have to try to find leverage and advantages when you put together your lineups. And maybe as far as Cameron Young goes, there might have been a little bit too much ownership around him. I think for a first timer at over 10%, maybe I should have been more cognizant of that situation, but I didn't mind the Burns situation. It was one of those things where I thought he was a good value, and I didn't think he'd win the tournament, but I wasn't expecting him to necessarily miss the cut either. And, unfortunately, as you mentioned with the 7 Deadly Sins article, I didn't end up betting Scottie Scheffler to win. I didn't end up betting Cameron Smith to win. I didn't bet Sung J M to win. Those are 3 of the 12 guys that qualified there. So I'm a little frustrated that I didn't stick to that a little bit more also.
You're on mute, Andrew.
Here we go. Yeah, on mute. That's dad life right there. Muting the mic. So anyway, I coined the show Showdown report. That's what we're here for. And that's Spencer writes content every week surrounding the showdowns. And I'm not that averse to the showdown report or showdowns in particular. So I'm going to give you my strategy. I want you to poke holes in it. Okay, Spencer? So my strategy is I'm going to go down through here and I'm going to pull out the biggest strokes gained putting differential from standard average weight versus what they are this week and make a lineup, make 4 or 5 lineups. Do you think that's a good strategy, number one? And if so, that's great. If not, why?
On the surface, yes. I think it's a good strategy. I think it's something good to implement. If you're using it solely based off of that, I'm going to say no, because I do think pre-tournament information needs to come back into play. I think that's one of the biggest problems that people have when they do showdown content or they make showdown lineups is everything that they've done from a pre-tournament perspective just goes out the window because of 2 rounds that have been played. I think that's a very dangerous game to play. I think that, and that's when if you do sign up for Rotoballer and you look at my in-tournament model that I put out there, I put a weight that you can attach to it for your pre-tournament information where that can come back into play on it. I think that's a really important thing to look at. And that mixed with the guys that have the big differential in putting will be where I am looking. And, 2 of those examples, just to throw them out there, Tyrrell Hatton. Let's go through. So baseline putting, if we took the baseline putting numbers and we put those stats into the ball striking that's taken place so far, instead of what the guys have actually done on the greens, this is where everybody would be as of this point. And I'll run through 8 or 10 of them just to get a general idea. And this is not rounded up or down. This is to the decimal point of this. So you're going to have some wonky numbers that don't actually make sense. But if everybody play to their baseline on putting with the way that they've struck the ball, Scottie Scheffler, 4.41 under par. Tyrrell Hatton, 4.37 under par. I think Hatton has been one of the biggest underachievers in this tournament when you look at that. Cameron Smith, 4 under par. Hideki, 2.96 under par. Connors, 2.43. Johnson, 1.77 under. Matthew Fitzpatrick, 1.28 under. Rory McIlroy, 1.27 under. So just looking at that list right there, the 3 guys that are substantially off from where they should be, Tyrrell Hatton, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Rory McIlroy. Even though Cameron Smith is up there, I think he should be closer to the lead than he is. I think those are 4 really interesting targets to look at. I think if you're going deeper down the board, one of the biggest outliers I can find is Mark Leishman. He is way underachieved from what he's done so far. And for the most part, those are guys that I liked pre-event. So that's what I'm trying to find this week.
Okay. So in saying all that, let's elementary it down. I mean, who we like going into the weekend when it talks to showdowns. If you're we're going to crown you the showdown savant here. So give us some ideas about what you're looking into, or not what you're looking into, but what have you seen in your model work, and almost factor that in with the pre-tournament stuff. Who you what I like to call green lighting going into the weekend?
Tyrrell Hatton for sure. Like if we look at his baseline putting versus what he's done, so Hatton is over 6 strokes worse than he should be at this moment. That's a massive number. You never see outliers that big. And that's the reason why my model believes you should be in second place if you have just gotten some sort of a random normal putting week from him. So I really like Tyrrell Hatton. I think Cameron Smith still has a chance to win this tournament. My model has him number 1 overall. Pre-tournament, it has him number 1 overall in all iterations of how I've run it. He is number 1 in this field when it comes to strokes gained off the T plus approach, 7.40 strokes. I mean, if we compare that to Scheffler, that's nearly 2 shots better. It's just Scheffler. The big difference it comes down to is Scheffler has gained 3.90 with his putter. Cameron Smith has lost 1.19. I think there's going to be a change that takes place at some point. I like Matthew Fitzpatrick of where he's at. I like Rory McIlroy. I'll run through some other guys that I have a value on. As I said, Mark Leishman has a value for me. unfortunately for Joe, Brooks Koepka would have been a player I would have liked if he could have made it into the weekend. He's one of the biggest outliers I had with putting. And the one difference is with him compared to everybody else, Koepka lost 5.22 shots with his putting. He did gain 3.39 around the green. So I guess there's a little bit of an outlier both directions with it. But those 5 or 6 names would be the players that I'm most intrigued on. And then I guess just to talk about some players that are way overachieving on the other end of the spectrum that I don't necessarily want anything to do with right now. Christian Bezadenhout, Danny Willett, Siwoo Kim, Lee Westwood, Minwoo Lee, Sungjae Im. Unfortunately, we talked a little bit off the air. Andrew, I know you like Hudson Swafford, but Hudson Swafford's on that list. Taylor Gooch, just guys like that I probably won't have as much exposure to because my model seems to be a little bit lower on them.
Now, is that because of any statistic overall, or just what your model? Is that any statistic in particular, or is that just what your model overall is seeing?
Well, yeah, with like Bezadenhout, we'll use him for an example on this. It's all putting. With Willett, it's all putting. Like at some point, I think they return back to their baseline, and they're very good putters, but they shouldn't be gaining, 5 to 6 shots putting over 2 rounds. Lee Westwood wasn't a guy that I was huge on to begin with. He's one of my fade candidates. I had a matchup against him today with Patrick Reed. I will probably try to have another matchup with him. I see Robert McIntyre against him on DraftKings at -125. That's probably a price I really like. I think Westwood's a guy that you're looking to take on this week if you can get an opportunity to. Same thing with Swafford. Unfortunately, I'm probably going to have Harry Higgs in a matchup at -105 over him, but that's kind of how I play this. I just take my pre-tournament numbers, I mix it with the in-tournament stats, and I run it through each day. A little bit more of the information goes on to the in-tournament numbers from the pre-tournament numbers. So like, for example, after day 1, I will have 75% of my information on the pre-tournament numbers, 25% of my information on the in-tournament numbers. After day 2, it's 65% pre-tournament, 35% in-tournament. And then after day 3, it's more of a 50-50 proposition with it. So I am always going to care about what I've run pre-tournament. And that's kind of where I was going earlier on in the conversation with both of those things end up mattering to me. And as the tournament goes on, the in-tournament starts meaning a little bit more, but it'll never be more than 50% of my weight, even after, on Saturday night when I run this.
Gotcha. So guys, where do we think this tournament's going? Where do you think, Joe? I mean, you texted me earlier tonight and you're like, I hate to say this, but first thoughts of let's go ahead and get him fitted for a jacket.
Yeah, my knee-jerk reaction is that this thing's over. But now that I've had a little time to kind of sit and step away from it a bit, from just how impressive Scheffler was, I think there's certainly avenues where this thing gets tight coming down the stretch Sunday. Obviously he's got a huge lead, 5-shot lead. It's tied for the largest 36-hole lead in history. It's happened 5 other times, and 4 of the 5 other times the players went on to win. So, I think Scottie Scheffler is a prohibitive favorite going the rest of the way to win this thing, especially with the way he's playing this week and the way he's been playing in weeks past. It's not like we've got a kind of a fluke guy up there with a big lead. This is a proven player, the new number 1 player in the world. So I certainly think he's a huge favorite to just go out and win this thing. But that said, there's some explosive players behind him. This is a golf course that both allows guys to go low, but can also be difficult. For a guy like Scheffler, playing conservatively, you can go out and play Augusta National and play really well and shoot 74. So, he goes out tomorrow, shoots an even par round, maybe 1 over, and a guy behind him shoots a 68, 67. Doesn't have to be a crazy number, but then all of a sudden, we got a dogfight come Sunday. So, and there are guys behind him that can put scores up. I don't think either one of you guys mentioned Justin Thomas. I know he's very far back, but I look for a big weekend from JT. killed it today. Led the field in strokes gained approach and strokes gained tee to green today. Struck the ball beautifully. Had the round of the day. So we've seen this numerous times from him, struggle in round one, get things going, and kind of blaze through the weekend. So, he's a ways back, but, I wouldn't be surprised to see another good round from him tomorrow. Another thing we want to take into account is the course conditions. I think we've seen this course play extremely tough. This is kind of the toughest version of Augusta National. And I look for that to continue, as things firm up and get even faster over the weekend. The breeze is going to stay there. So, I look at a guy like a Shane Lowry, a major champion that's experienced, a grinder, can handle any type of weather conditions, and honestly kind of prefers it the tougher it gets. And Spencer mentioned the Cameron Smith, who we know is extremely explosive and can play well in any type of conditions. So, my gut reaction, my first initial thoughts were that Scheffler's got this thing locked up. But when you start digging in a little bit, looking down the board at who's behind him, we got a Dustin Johnson there. We know the type of things he's capable of. So, it's all going to depend on Scottie. If he goes out and puts another round together like we saw today or anything similar, then this thing's probably over. But if he struggles a little bit tomorrow, or just plays mediocre and a couple guys behind him come out with some good rounds, then we could have an exciting Sunday still.
Where do you see this thing going, Spencer?
I personally think, which maybe it's the contrarian take here, I think it's 50-50 if Scheffler pulls this off. Now, I agree with Joe. If we get anything close, we don't even have to get what he did today. I mean, if he shoots 2 under par and he gets this to 10 under, might be difficult to catch him, but it's going to be a tough round tomorrow. I think it's very possible that he could shoot 2 or 3 over and all of a sudden this tournament opens up. I think the 3 guys that are most likely to catch him, if somebody does, it's probably Cameron Smith, Justin Thomas, Hideki Matsuyama. As Joe said, Dustin's still in. I don't love the way he's striking the ball right now, but Dustin can turn it on at any point. My model likes Will Zalatoris. I know, Andrew, you brought up Cantlay a little bit. I think at 1 over, it's not over. Like, if for some reason Scottie Scheffler shoots a 75 tomorrow and Cantlay goes out and shoots a 68, all of a sudden he's back in this tournament. Like, Scheffler controls the destiny for a lot of these guys that are either even par or over. The Rory McIlroys of the world, maybe Tyrrell Hatton is too far back to come back, but even a guy like Morikawa, who I don't technically love this week, he's sitting at 1 under par. He's not that far back. He has a lot of guys chasing him. He's still trying to win his first major. I know he's the number 1 player in the world now. He's still going to be feeling pressure that he's never felt before. So yes, he is the favorite to win, but to me, it's 50-50. It's like a little over 50% for him. And then sprinkle the rest of the 50% with all those guys that are 3 under to probably 2 over with like the most realistic chances.
I think I think Scheffler can end this tournament tomorrow if he plays well.
I would agree with that.
I mean, all that said, and we're obviously fans. We want to see from a fan perspective, we want to see an exciting finish, and we want this thing to kind of remain watchable through the end. But with all that said, the guy's played amazing golf. He's shown a lot of poise in big spots, not major championship spots yet, but it's on his shoulders to end this thing tomorrow. If he goes out and plays well, he can basically end it tomorrow.
And that's the thing with it. It's not just like he's gaining with the putter and it's not some sustainable thing. I know 3.9 is more than you would expect, but 2.87 off the tee over the 2 days, 2.79 approach, 2.87 around the green, the 3.9 with the putting. That's spectacular. He's almost 3 shots or above in all strokes gain metrics that you can find. So yeah, like there's really no reason to believe that he's not going to continue. And I guess that's the scariest part about it. But if he shoots, he could, like Joe, if he shoots a 72 even and Hideki goes out and shoots a 68, all of a sudden now we have a dogfight between the two of them.
Yeah, it only takes one of those guys, to turn this thing into a dogfight. With an even par or higher score from Scheffler, I could see one of those guys, at least one of them, maybe 2, putting a number on the board tomorrow. We got to think, guys. The golf course is going to be playing tough tomorrow, I believe. So it's going to be really interesting to see who can get themselves in the mix and position themselves for Sunday.
And we've seen Justin Thomas do this before, as you alluded to, Joe, at the Players Championship. He was down by 1 million strokes entering the weekend, and he stormed back. So he's a dangerous guy if he can get hot with the putter. That's something that's, we'll remain to see if that's going to end up being the case at the Masters, just because he has been so hot or cold on these greens. I don't know if he can do it for 2 days, but if he can, he has a threat, and he's definitely a threat to Scottie Scheffler.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what JT puts together tomorrow. Also, really interested to see what Cam Smith puts together. He hasn't really putted well, not up to his standards. From a strokes gain perspective, lost almost 2 strokes to the field in round 2. So we know what type of explosive player he is. He demonstrated that. The Players demonstrated it in round 1. So he's a guy that can string birdies together in a hurry. So the guys I'm circling behind Scheffler to kind of keep an eye on, JT, Cam Smith, and I would throw Shane Lowry in there just because he's a tough competitor, and I feel like he can kind of handle the tougher conditions that we're probably going to see at Augusta National this weekend.
One thing I want to add to the conditions playing, and I've noticed it 2 days in a row, that the guys that get out really early, they get about 6-8 holes in before the conditions get a little wiry. And obviously Augusta, on purpose for TV purposes, have 2 to 3 groups of really, really stud players of both waves. And so what I noticed was the last 4 or 5 holes, the last, say, 3 holes on TV, there's no wind. Did y'all notice that the last 2 days? Like, there's very little wind at all coming down. Say Scottie's in the last group today. They had no wind like the last 2 holes. And I noticed that so the conditions are actually toughest for the guys that tee off right in the middle, which could put a hindrance on somebody, running off and shooting 66 that tees off, that starts out in 25th place. Does that make sense, guys? What I'm trying to say there. And I didn't know if y'all had either caught that at all. I know Joe probably hadn't had an opportunity to watch as much as me and Spencer has, but I've watched a lot of it.
I think kind of, not exactly what you're saying, AP, but kind of in that ballpark. I think we can also, the pressure's off these guys. We all know, guys, the hashtag backdoor king Rory McIlroy is coming tomorrow. He's starting the day out +2, no pressure at all. So we've seen him do it how many times, backdoor top 10s in major championships when the pressure's off. So, if you're playing showdowns, you might want to circle Rory tomorrow because he's probably going to come out and shoot 65 when it doesn't matter. So the pressure's kind of off those guys. They can go out and free roll it a little bit. And as you mentioned, Andrew, maybe have the best of the weather draw if they're going off early versus kind of midday. So it's always interesting, especially from a showdown perspective, when you're just trying to roster the 6 guys with the best scores.
Yeah, I really like Rory. I know I kind of alluded to that a little bit ago, but he's 11th in this tournament right now off the T+ approach. I think he's sitting on a big round at some point.
Yeah, I think, to kind of touch on those guys like that, definitely Rory, definitely Jon Rahm, guys we can circle that. We know they have a knack for kind of being there at the end of the tournament. Maybe not, in contention to win, but these guys have the experience, and they're very, very good at playing all 4 rounds and just racking up really solid finishes. So, wouldn't be surprised to see a Rahm or a Rory or both play really well tomorrow.
So what you're saying is Rahm, since he's 2 over and not in contention, he's not going to get as many mud balls like nobody else I got this weekend. I don't know if y'all saw that, but just he's complained about mud balls like 4 or 5 times and nobody else said a word about it. How's that possible? I don't know. Just a thought.
Rahm does a lot of complaining.
It can't be his fault, Andrew. It can't be his fault.
Okay.
He's got to blame it on something. These guys are wired different, man. I almost think they've got to be kind of wired that way. We got Tiger Woods playing on a robot leg this week. That dude ain't exactly wired like everybody else. So I think these guys there's a little little piece of their mind where the wires are a little bit crossed, and Roms comes out and kind of complaining about mud balls or whatever. We see other guys handle it in different ways, but some of these guys are have a really unique mindset to kind of be competitive at this level. I think that's kind of what I chalk it up to.
Did you see who Rom's playing with tomorrow?
No. What happened?
He's playing with Terrell Hatton. That should be fireworks.
Man, if ever there needs to be a group mocked up, it needs to be Rom.
Can't hear you, Joe. Can't hear you, bud.
If there ever needs to be a group mocked up, it needs to be Rom Hatton tomorrow.
Yeah, did y'all see Rom? They thought Rom hit it out of bounds twice on 10. He just kept on re-teeing and like, worst shot ever. And then Doug hooked the next one. Worse. That's worse than the last one. And then gets down there and his first one's in bounds. It's pretty funny.
I think the Hatton versus Rom matchup's kind of an interesting one tomorrow. I've seen Hatton as high as plus 140 there. If you're looking to purely number grab a price there, I think that's a little bit closer than it should be. I think plus 140 is a pretty good price on Hatton.
I think Hatton's had one of the best years. I mean, he's undervalued every time he tees it up, in my 100%. Opinion. And so, if you've been on him this year, you've been crushing matchups. I've seen it. You know, I had him matched up against Zalatoris at TPC plus 135, I think 134. It was an absolute lock, man. I mean, he just he gets undervalued so much, and so I guess on leaving out guys, we've been going around the horse. Spencer, I'll let you go first. Who you see making a move? And I know I feel like you're going to say Hatton or Rory, but who you see making a move? And who do you really see as what we like to call deep down your heart winning this thing?
It's hard to go against Scottie Scheffler. I know I've said a bunch of negative things against him, and maybe that's just trying to find it from a mathematical perspective here. He is the favorite. Like it's him versus the field at this point. So it's either you like him or you like the field. And if you like the field, you got to come up with an answer of some kind. So for me, I'm going to say somebody catches him. Maybe that's going too outside of the box with it. I think the two most realistic people that can win this tournament from him are probably Cameron Smith and Justin Thomas. I think the two guys that are going to make a run are Hatton and Rory. Now, that might just be runs to get into a backdoor top 10 finish. But I think Cameron Smith, if the putter can turn around for him, the way he is striking the ball right now, he's going to be difficult to beat. And he just needs a couple putts to go down. And I think that this tournament can become much closer.
So what about you, Joe?
Yeah, I think Scottie Scheffler is going to win this tournament. But I'm
a little closer, Joe. Your mic's cutting out, buddy.
Sorry, man. It's been a long week. I think this thing might be worn out. I think Scottie Scheffler is going to win the golf tournament. I think he's the best player in the world right now. I think he's playing with some poise, with a lot of confidence, coming off all these big wins, you know, in the lead up to this event. So I think Scottie Scheffler is going to win this thing. But I'm with Spencer. I think the two guys I've got circled to, you know, that could possibly give him some headaches are Cameron Smith and Justin Thomas, with Shane Lowry kind of having an outdoor shot. But yeah, man, I think Scheffler's got this thing in hand, and I think he's going to win.
I got you. Man, it's hard for me to see Scottie Scheffler not win this, guys. I see his true odds across the board around 140 to 150. And surprisingly enough, everybody's offering almost even money. So you might need a dab in there. I think FanDuel's offering plus 115. It might not be a bad thing that I see going forward. I don't see anybody catching him. I'll be honest with you. They're going to have to come out of the gate firing. Maybe they said, I would love to see the golf course be set up really hard on the front nine with some gettable pins on the back. And maybe the tee moved up on 15. That would be pretty cool, I think, coming down the stretch. You're going to get out early and put a little pressure, or maybe see the problem is Scheffler's hit it right down the middle on every hole, 350 yards. That's the problem. I know he's making putts, but that's the problem. He's not missing a fairway. I heard him today say, God, it's like this guy just never misses a fairway. And it's so true. And on the shots that he misses, it's in the places where he can miss. And that's important. I agree with you, Spencer. Starting on about 15, 16 yesterday, DJ's ball striking went straight downhill, and it's been going there ever since. He's looked uncomfortable with his long irons. So I don't think he can catch him. Cam Smith, and I honestly think same with him. He played very poorly today. He grinded it out. I do like where Lowry's head's at. Matsuyama's a kind of a wild card for me. I don't know. We don't know where his injury is, right? And he's going to go out there and he's going to try on every shot, no matter if he's shooting 80 or 60. So Matsuyama, it would be my pick on somebody to catch him. I don't think JT's got any, but if he gets it going, he gets it going. So, but I would say Scheffler overall, check for the markets for a plus on win the tournament. And one match of value I'm going to throw out there that I'm not sure if I'm going to release it or not, but Zalatoris is real odds against Morikawa tomorrow is roughly even. So -105, -110, and he's plus money right now. So it's a tough one, but I kind of like it, honestly. He's probably about a 4% advantage overall. So I'm going to leave it at that. Anything going out y'all want to talk on before we leave?
Let me touch on that very quickly. So, and I agree with you. Zalatoris, my proper price on him is -117 against Morikawa. You can get him at +105 on DraftKings right now. If you shop around, I don't know if you can find a better price than that. I'm probably not going to include it into one of my wagers. It's going to be the one that ends up missing for me. But I like that. I think that if you are number grabbing a price there, Zalatoris should be the favorite in my opinion in that matchup. And then, as I said, McIntyre -125 over Westwood, Harry Higgs -105 over Swafford, and I haven't made a decision yet on Hatton, but I'm probably going to take him over Rahm.
There you go. And Joe Nicely is going to be shopping the Showdown market here shortly to liven up his weekend.
Building lineups tonight.
There you go. Building lineups tonight. Spencer Aguilar, thank you for coming on again. Our most welcome guest ever on this show. Been on more times than anybody. Tee Off Sports on Twitter. Fantasy Sports Golf Writer of the Year. Can't say enough about him. Puts out killer content every week. Hardest working man in DFS, in my opinion. Joe Nicely, my one of my best friends in the golf world, and talk to him week in, week out, actually daily about golf and great minds surrounding it too. Thanks for everybody listening. We got a couple more days of this. Joe I will be coming on tomorrow night, tour picks. Don't miss that. We got 2 more days of Masters golf. Enjoy, everybody. Thank you, rotoballer.com, for everything you do. You have listened to the Turn Fantasy Golf Podcast.